when I first read the first draft of the script, I was immediately drawn to Marie. I knew of her. I didn't know her personally, but I just deeply empathized with that draw to covering these conflict zones, and also the difficulty of coming home, and that absolutely bizarre juxtaposition of being shot at and then being at home in New York City. And yeah, so I spent months and months and months researching her world, getting to know her friends and her colleagues, reading everything I could about her, reading her own writings, and then worked with the screenwriters on another draft of the script that I felt was more authentic and true to my experience as well. The war zones were shot in Jordan and London to London. So yeah, Jordan was Sri Lanka, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, and Syria. And it was extraordinarily important to me to. Sorry, is there a lot of feedback? It was really important to me to work with non-actors. So all the sort of extras in those war zones were actually from those countries. They were refugees that were in Jordan. So when we're in the mass grave in Iraq, those are all Iraqi women who were really reliving trauma that they'd experienced. They were wailing, they were crying, and that was they were reliving real trauma. When we're in the widow's basement in Syria, the women that Marie or Rosamund talks to, those are real women that were actually really in the widow's basement in homes, and they were telling their real stories. That wasn't scripted.
Matthew, you have started your work as a documentary filmmaker, and when you look at The Private War, and also the way you have dealt with it, using real characters, real people, not characters, real people, and letting them also talk from their own experiences. You seem to sort of marry a little bit, or take your experience as a documentary filmmaker and apply it to your work as a narrative director, which is fairly unique. So can you talk a little bit about that transition between working with in the field with the real stories to recreating a story that has happened and turning into a fiction? How does that, as a documentary filmmaker, what was the process like for you?
I think it was strange for sure, walking on a set, which was the first time I'd ever been on a movie set for the first time, and seeing, a couple hundred people in front of me, when I'm used to shooting out in the middle of nowhere alone with my own camera, taking my own sound, downloading my own footage. Now there was whole departments for those things, which was strange, but amazing as well. I tried to bring as much of my documentary experience into shooting this as possible. Any conflict in the Middle East that we've been a part of, we sort of go in and, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria right now, we sort of don't really look at the long-term consequences of these interventions, obviously. And I think that's obviously one of the tragedies of the last 10 years, really. For many years, but especially when it comes to the Middle East. For me, the film is again, as I said, it's a sort of homage to journalism at a time when, journalists are targets. Journalists are being criticized. I think in this world of fake news, it's so important to celebrate true journalism and people out there like Marie who are fighting for the truth. And I think it's sad now that journalists are being, criticized and by a certain person in power, and I think free speech journalism is at the bedrock of a free and democratic society, and so I think
no matter what side of journalism, no matter what type of journalism you're doing, it's so important to have a voice, to allow those voices to be heard. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I hope it doesn't inspire people to put themselves in danger. It's the world has changed since she died. She was one of the first reporters to really be targeted. Since then, a number of journalists have been targeted by the Assad regime, by ISIS, and so the world of journalism has changed. There's less and less money in foreign bureaus. There's less and less money in long form investigative journalism, the type of journalism that she did. So I think we're relying more and more on sort of citizen journalists on the ground reporting, and obviously the ways to disseminate information has changed. Anyone with a smartphone can at least shed light on human rights atrocities around the world. So the world has changed. The way we consume information has obviously changed, but that doesn't take away from the importance of people like Marie who are out there telling these stories. It's been amazing being here in Woodstock. I've always wanted to come here. I've never been here at the festival, and it's been an amazing experience for me. Very humbling, and incredible crowds, great conversations, and sort of like a film heaven, it seems like, up here. So it's been absolutely lovely, and yeah, I don't want to go home. But I don't know, I think hopefully, like any, or at least the films that I like, I hope everyone takes something different away from the film. Everyone takes something different away from who this woman was. I don't like making films, and I don't like watching films that are one-dimensional, that have sort of paint, very simple brushstrokes around characters. I think I'm complicated, you're complicated, we're all complicated, living, breathing organisms. So to embrace that complexity is extraordinarily important to me. So I hope people take many different things away from the film, but most importantly, talk about it and think about it, and hopefully it'll stay with them, past throwing their popcorn away in the trash can. At least that's the goal.